Hey everybody, this is Eli, and with me as always is the unfathomable Michael Anderson.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, Michael?
I am all right.
So
I've got a car.
This
and
is
I'm gonna crash
episode
it into
6
stuff.
of the GameWisp Weekly Podcast, and this week we are playing Burnout Paradise. Now, every week on the GameWisp Podcast, we choose a theme and we discuss some things around that theme, and typically play a game related to that theme. You can decide how Burnout Paradise fits into the following theme, however you'd like. But today's theme is rehashing, throwbacking, revisiting. That's today's theme.
It's a great theme.
It's revisiting because there have been some things going on lately in the news and in video games and in gaming video that is very indicative of revisiting, redoing, rehashing.
Yeah,
So that's what we're going to talk about.
Running it back, you would say?
Yeah, running it back. And so, we're going to talk about that while we play a little Burnout. Just as usual, the typical disclaimer here, if you came looking for somebody playing some awesome Burnout video, this is not the place to come because the game is pretty much just background imagery for us, moving at a rate of approximately 60 frames per second.
Right on.
Aside from that, we're just gonna shoot the breeze for a while.
That's right.
So how's it going, Mike?
It's good, man. How are you?
Tired.
Yeah.
Tired. Yeah, and
Lots of late nights on that GameWisp. Right?
yeah. A lot of work and development and doing things. I'm feeling old, feeling tired.
Yeah.
And
Which is why it's great to. I wanted to. That's why it's a good time to rehash things because nothing brings us joy anymore.
nothing except reminiscing on the good old days.
That's right.
Before we were old and tired. Speaking of being old and tired, the PlayStation, 20 years old today.
Yeah. That's pretty
well,
crazy,
not today,
right?
but 20 years old, like in this approximate time period. I don't know when its official birthday is. I don't remember. You a PlayStation guy, Mr. Anderson?
No.
Oh, boo.
I'm getting destroyed.
Nice.
I, for one reason or another, never had the PlayStation 1. And
You missed out.
I played it, a few times at a buddy's house or whatever, and enjoyed some of the games. Early on, even just simple stuff like Crash Bandicoot, fun times on that first system. But, really the thing that, for me, made the PlayStation 1 shine was that Metal Gear Solid. I remember I definitely played that whole experience. So
Did you beat Metal Gear Solid?
I did, yeah.
Really? When did you play it?
So I specifically borrowed a friend's PlayStation 1 so that I could play Metal Gear Solid. Like, that's how much I knew that game was going to be important, right?
I also borrowed someone's PlayStation to play Metal Gear Solid,
Nice.
but it was my older brother's, and I would sneak into his room and play it when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
In fact, I bought Metal Gear Solid with my own money, and then I didn't want him to find the game because he would know. He'd be like, why is this game here that I didn't purchase? And so I would just hide it.
That's
I
hilarious.
would carry it into the room with me when he was gone, and then I would play Metal Gear Solid. And then when I saw him coming home, I would immediately button everything up and hide everything and slink out and hope he never saw the saved games on his
That's awesome.
On his memory card. To my knowledge, he never did. So that was good. I think I eventually admitted it to him years later that I'd been
That's good. That's a good time to do it.
playing Metal Gear Solid on his PlayStation. But it was a great game. It was a great console. You're terrible at Paradise City, by the way.
Apparently. Sorry.
it was a great game, a great console. There were several good games there. A lot of good franchises came in that PS1.
Right, and I think it's interesting because I think there's several franchises that I just don't have a ton of allegiance to right now because I didn't have that nostalgia factor from the first PlayStation, So things like SOCOM, people would do that. Uncharted.
I miss SOCOM too.
And have you played Uncharted?
Dude, I desperately wanted to like Uncharted. I like Naughty Dog on principle. Interesting things. But I played Uncharted 1. This was right around before The Last of Us came out, so it's been really recently. I played the first Uncharted, and man, those stupid wave runner sequences. So the game is really formulaic to a fault almost. It's like platforming section, shoot people section, platforming section, shoot people section, wave runner section, which is the worst thing that's ever happened. There's these various parts where you jump on like a sea-doo, and you have to like navigate some little channel or whatever, and there's mines and people shooting at you, and you can't really do much. And it's like, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
This is the worst thing that's ever happened to gaming. Where the Raid Runner section's on the very first Uncharted.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Talk about throwback. You ever play, you ever have N64?
Yes.
Okay. Did you play Wave Race?
Yeah, I did, actually.
Yeah,
I was more of a Mario Kart guy, though.
Fair.
Or Pod Racer.
That's a great racing game. Pod Racer.
Yeah.
Now there's a throwback.
Pod Racer was my jam.
Everybody loves a good pod race.
Yeah, but going back to the PlayStation.
But
being 20 years
PlayStation,
old.
yeah, it's crazy. And what's cool about PlayStation is that I just feel like they've done a lot of interesting like innovation with their products. The PlayStation 1 was the first console that successfully ran and ran off discs. We had things like Sega CD and other various things.
Was the Jaguar disc based?
I don't think so. I think it was cartridge
The
based.
3DO was.
Yeah,
right?
and like in the Saturn was disc based.
Hey, I had a Saturn.
So you could, I guess you could sort of argue that the Saturn was kind of successful.
I know it wasn't.
It had some good games, but I think that's innovative. One of my favorite, sequences, and probably a lot of people's favorite in Metal Gear Solid is like the, and I didn't look up the name of this the boss, but the part where you have to like, take your controller out.
Yeah, it's Psycho Mantis, man.
Psycho Mantis,
it's a Psycho Mantis fight.
And
that's seared into my 11-year-old brain.
Yeah, it's just like really, really cool innovation. It's interesting, right?
That's Hideo Kojima, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always going to do that kind of crazy stuff. I don't know.
Anyway, it's a cool system. It started off a lot of it started off a new season in gaming. So I think that's really neat.
I would think so. Despite things that had come before it, it really did something different enough to turn heads and stick around. I'm sure it'll be around for another 20 years. I don't think the PlayStation's going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They definitely seem to have course corrected some of the problems they made with.
If they'd stop
PS3.
getting hacked all the time.
Yeah, that's also true.
But that's not the console's fault.
Yeah, that's true.
Necessarily.
Let's see if I can.
Is it Burnout time?
I don't know. I think you're supposed to like. There we go.
Know. Whatever.
Anyway, ready to race. So I don't know. It's cool. I think they've been doing some interesting things around the 20-year anniversary.
Yeah, apparently there was a shop in the UK selling PS4s for €20.
Yeah.
And or pounds. The pounds. Yeah, sorry, guys. Sorry. The pound.
The pound. There is no euro there.
Yeah, sorry. Oof. Almost started
an international
pitchforks.
bloodbath.
Pitchforks were rising.
That's right.
Yeah, and so they were selling the PS4 for £20, which is absurd.
And it's the 20th anniversary version of the PS4. Which
they released a 20th anniversary version?
Yeah, which is neat.
What color is it? Is it like silver?
I don't actually know. I didn't see a picture. I saw a picture of the box. The box is white. So that.
Yeah. So it's like apparently the design harkens back to the PS1 to an extent.
So that's very cool.
I'll have to do that. Like it's that.
Check it out.
It's that gray color, man.
Yeah.
PlayStation gray, which was almost Super Nintendo gray, but not quite.
That's right.
That's the deal with the PS1.
Oh yeah, look at that jump.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, I don't know. We're talking about we're playing a racing game. We should talk about a racing game.
Right on.
And we should talk about a racing game that I think a lot of people were really excited about. And then once it was released, they just found out that it was more of the same.
Yeah.
Ho hum. And that game is The Crew. And I was really excited for The Crew. I don't play a lot of games. I don't play a lot of racing games at all.
Yeah.
If I'm going to play a racing game, it's going to be like Gran Turismo or Forza.
Right.
But I was looking at The Crew. I was like, this seems... And, it got me.
Yeah.
Gaming marketing gets me. Rarely, but every once in a while, I fall into its trap. And that's having some level of excitement for a game that's about to be released. I should know better.
Right. Shouldn't we all?
Yeah. I'm so jaded at this point. And I've just got so many things working in my favor. Like, I've been playing video games a long time. I'm naturally a cynical person. I develop software for a living. Like, I should know that the thing you're going to make isn't going to do everything you're telling me it's going to do. Or it's going to do it in some really, half-hearted way.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's, the industry has just turned into a legion of Peter Molyneux's, just over-promising. And I should know that by now, and I don't. But anyway.
Yeah. One day you'll learn.
The Crew.
Tell me, what did they promise you?
I don't know, like, cross country racing and in this bigger world and
with your friends.
Man, that frame's bent.
Yeah,
that totaling that on insurance.
Okay.
That's not even possible. You can't deform that way.
It's accurate, physically accurate. Promise.
And so this idea of like driving across an open expanse and recruiting people into your crew, and
So is it like it's like, what's that movie series that I watch all of them?
Fast and the Furious.
Fast and Furious Simulator. Drive across country.
I wish it was more like Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
You
you become a family. You fight international terrorism with The Rock all of a sudden.
That's not Smokey and the Bandit. That's Fast and Furious.
Or
like Cannonball Run, that movie which really happens, a race where people drive like across the country and whoever gets their first wins or whatever.
That would be really cool.
Super legal racing. Yeah, and we all have delusions of doing that someday, right? Who doesn't? I'm going to drive illegally and race across the country. But anyway, so the crew, there's this concept. You're driving, you're racing. You recruit people to join your crew, or whatever.
How do you recruit people? Like, how do you tell them you're cool?
Like your car? I'm not really sure because I haven't played it because the reviews disappointed me.
Oh,
yeah.
Was it that bad?
I mean, so Joystick gave it like a 3 out of 5.
Oh, jeez.
And like, I don't know. I mean, that's average. That's a half star above average.
Yeah. So it's like this could be enjoyable.
Yeah, but my deal on that is that I just don't have time to play average games.
Right.
That's unfortunate. I just don't. Like, the time doesn't. And I think for a lot of people, the time doesn't exist to just play an average game. We need like 8 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s.
Yeah.
We need, or games that may not necessarily have a number attached to them, but have glowing praises sung about them.
Right.
So I don't have time to play average, and I hate that because I know a lot of people probably worked on the crew and poured a lot of time into it and blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's be immediately dismissive of this thing that somebody spent a lot of time on. Yeah. But that's how it is, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how it is. So a little disappointed there, and the Joystick article about it mentioned there that there's this like Xfinity branded race.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Product placement?
Dude, there's a Fastlane joke in there somewhere.
Yeah,
there has to be. And probably as soon as we finish this podcast, I'm gonna get it. It's gonna be perfect.
It's gonna be awesome.
And then I'm gonna tweet it or try to tweet it, and Greg's gonna be like, "You're an idiot. I'm not doing that." But like, I just know it's there. So hopefully, somebody, if you find it, post in the comments. Really, and those should be comments we get. Any attempt to rag on Xfinity seems like.
Yeah, that's good because we had as a note, if you follow us, we have a morning coffee every morning.
Indeed.
Morning coffee in the morning, and we actually had no morning coffee on Monday because our Comcast internet was down completely
for hours,
like 4 or 5 hours.
And we called them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, your internet's down. We'll fix it between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m." They didn't actually say that. They actually said 4 p.m., which is perhaps worse.
That is worse. And honestly, it was down like all over the city, which is kind of crazy to me.
When I went home last night, there were 3 big Comcast trucks, like basket trucks.
Really?
Fixing the junction at one transformer.
Wow.
I'm like, why are there 3 of you to fix one? Like,
bad?
Yeah, you got your truck to fix it, and then your 2 backup trucks.
That's
in
right.
case you need to fix those trucks. I don't know. But like, come on, Comcast. Like,
That's right.
Get it together.
How do you rate my stunt run that I just did?
And I wouldn't hate on them so much if they didn't hate their customers so much.
Right on.
Like, why do you hate me so much?
Don't hate me.
It gives me right to hate you back. But that's not nostalgia.
Nostalgia
would be if instead of talking about Comcast, we talked about Prime
AOL.
Star.
Prime Star, that's good too.
Or AOL or whatever. Dial-up.
Yeah. Were you ever a patron of America Online?
No. Man, even 9-year-old me knew that was a bad idea. Like, if they're giving me this many free discs, this has to suck. That was my.
That's really funny.
That was my life.
Well, it's too bad that Crew is bad. I like games that have interesting mechanics like that, where there's like community and lots of cool things. So, shut it down to own it. That's one of the things I really like about this game. Is you just like can crash cool cars and then you own them.
It just dawned on me that these aren't licensed vehicles, because this is the back end of this is a Mustang.
Yeah,
it is so obviously a Mustang.
Yeah.
And then you look at the front, and it's so obviously like a Camaro.
Yeah, it's pretty funny in that way. I don't know what that is.
It doesn't really make any sense. Or not a Camaro, like a Firebird, like an old 60s Firebird. Maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway. Whatever.
Got off on that. So, I think, who knows if the crew will do this, but, the crew, despite it being not like the best game, it is for sure a successfully launched without bugs Ubisoft game. So that's...
Is that what we're applauding now?
I think so. We have to give them some credit.
Congratulations, you released a thing that's not broken.
That's right. Congrats. But one thing that Ubisoft is really famous for, and I don't know if they'll actually do it with this this particular game, the crew. Maybe they'll fix some stuff. I don't know what's happening.
There's just a lot of cars, man.
It's just dropping. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, the interesting thing is that they love DLC over there at Ubisoft.
Man.
And that's right.
So I guess we can talk about DLC. I think that definitely fits into the theme of revisiting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, the GTA 5 DLC caused us to revisit a game that was, many would argue, was great when it came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they get a 10? Did IGN give it like a 10 or a million out of a million?
Yeah. They got a really good...
they hand out points like candy over there.
That's right, but in a good way. I think they gave it a good score because it was awesome. And, I think that Take-Two's CEO had mentioned some stuff about kind of the way to do DLC. And it was an interesting read.
Why? I read this. And why is this eye-opening? His approach to DLC is we should provide value. That's eye-opening. Like, that's a shocker. Like,
maybe
I don't think
they provide a circus of value.
Nice. I don't think there's anybody out there, if DLC had been done right, that would say, crap, more stuff I value for that game I like.
Right.
What happened was it wasn't that DLC is bad. Mm-hmm. It's that the value provided by that DLC is bad.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And so it's just, to me, it's mind-blowing that, as an industry, in aggregate, the gaming industry was so bad at providing DLC that it's newsworthy when the CEO of Take-Two says, "Oh yeah, we're just going to provide value."
Yeah,
that's newsworthy. Like, what is wrong with this industry?
Yeah, well, and I think it was an interesting article because it applied somewhat to what we're doing at GameWisp. I thought that was really interesting in that you want to provide, and I think this is actually goes. This is really like useful for content creators to think about, is that how do you provide value to your customers without milking them just for stuff that they should have gotten for free already?
Right.
And it's he makes the Take-Two CEO makes a great point in that you want to take advantage of, not take advantage, but you want to enable people that sort of want to pay more money for things to be able to do that, but those things need to be worth their time and money. And just like you maybe want to encourage, you want to sort of like leverage your brand to make more money as a content creator, but you don't. We talk to a lot of these content creators. They don't want to milk their fans, because their fans are what makes them popular anyway.
Well, and you don't want to seem like you're not being genuine, which was the problem with DLC, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you're releasing 5 armor sets or 2 new guns that just look a little different, and you're not. It's disingenuous, man. Like,
right.
Even if you're not a software developer, I think you have some kind of vague notion about what or what isn't value in software, right? And it's like, well, if this behaves the same as some other piece of functionality in the game, it just looks a little different. Like, I have a gut notion that was easy.
Right.
Or that wasn't expensive.
Yeah.
Relatively expensive.
Right.
Compared to the cost of actually producing the game. And so it's like, then you're cheating me, right? And there's this notion of, despite the fact that a person is or isn't an expert in any field, I think there's a relative notion of value that arises. And in some cases, maybe it's misplaced. But for the gaming industry, it's not. Yeah,
and it's indicative of a maturing industry where, similar to how to some extent, how much effort sort of it takes to put into creating a game, you can say like, oh, you made like 3 missions. Well, there's a lot of people out there that know that, and maybe this is too geeky, I'm not really sure, but like the idea that, a mission is basically like a scripting language versus like a feature, which is like a a compiled down language. And so, the fact that you released like a few new missions using the same art assets should not be, it's just not that many man hours that you're trying to
and it goes back to that assessment of value. And since it's relative, I can look at a game like, let's use a simple one, like Tetris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so, there's some levels in Tetris, and maybe the background changes as you move in difficulty, and your DLC is providing with a new background, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a little piece of the game. That's a little piece of functionality,
Yeah.
and you've just provided some extra little piece. And it's like, that doesn't seem that valuable to me, because in the scope of the game, what the game consists of, a background asset is minimal.
Yeah.
Like I can play the game without it practically. And so it's, everybody I think can intuitively do that. They can look at any game or anything that's released and look at DLC that's been released beside it and be able to weigh the value of that in the scope of the game itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk. I have two questions to ask about that, because it's really, I think it brings up 2 interesting points. One is that sort of like what makes I guess kind of like what makes the value worth it to some extent. And then also, like, is it at what point does it become their like imperative to take the high road on that? So I guess the question comes from like, say, like, if people are willing to pay $1 for a background, is it in their like, is it their responsibility to not offer that because it's maybe not a great value?
It's easy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's something people struggle with from a business perspective, is like, what's my responsibility? With even like in-app purchases, like, should I not offer them because people might,
Because they're easy.
Because they're easy, or, what's the? I don't know what the. What's the line there? What's your take on that?
I mean, it's all relative, right? Like, and I think there are a few ways to look at it. So, if we take a game like I'm just going to Mass Effect, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even remember I don't remember the Mass Effect DLC, but say Mass Effect comes out, and then 2 months later they release 5 new armor sets.
Yeah.
And they're cosmetic, they look a little different, whatever, and they're going to cost you $1.
Yeah.
Like, so you look at it relatively. It's like, well, an armor set's cheap. There's a bunch of armor in the game. Like, I might pay $1 for this.
Yeah.
If it looks cool.
Yeah.
Because it's $1, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're totally in line with impulse. And so it's like small amount of effort, impulse buy. But if you're saying something like, okay, they release an armor set and it's $10, like that's like 1/6 the game price.
Yeah.
For like something that's arguably not 1/6 of the game, right? I think there's a weight there, and you have to, as a developer. I think there's 2 different approaches here, right? There's the developer and the business. And as a developer, I think you understand and know inherently what is valuable about your game and what you can do to increase that value to your users.
Yeah.
The business contention is, well, I know this is valuable, but somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
Somebody will pay $10 for those 4 pieces of armor, so let's do it. And then it ends up just looking really skeezy and disingenuous.
Yeah.
You just didn't even try there.
I won.
Oh, that's how you win?
Apparently so.
Yeah, and so I mean that's the one thing. And like as a business, you're gonna say, well, should we not offer this because it's easy? No, that's not what happens. Somebody will pay for it, so you offer it. And you test the water, and then. And so I think a company like Rockstar has probably gotten very good at realizing what is valuable, right?
Right.
And
do you think as a part of that? Oh, sweet! I will take him down to win his car. Do you feel that it changes when you get to a different size of developer, that you have more responsibility? For instance, Rockstar has more of an opportunity to create awesome DLC. You look at the rehash per se of the nice. You look at the rehash of GTA 5, and you see they put a lot of love and care. We talked about this in a previous episode of the podcast. Into even the cell phone, and the first-person experience wasn't tacked on.
Yeah.
So they had the resources and time to actually create something valuable that maybe a smaller development company wouldn't have the resources to do.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of smaller companies give DLC away for free.
That's true.
And the fan service is more important. So I don't know. It's the point is it's pretty complex, and it's easy to wring your hands and say, oh, we're getting screwed by this DLC, but like, somebody out there's probably paying for it, or it focus tested, and somebody said they would pay for it, and so I guess like all things in capitalism, vote with your dollar,
right.
and don't buy those armor sets or whatever, and understand that when something like Grand Theft Auto is enormously successful with an expansion like they had, that sends a big signal to the rest of the industry that, wow, if we put time and effort into this, we make even more money.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe that's the key is like, hey, this is going to be, we're going to sell a certain amount if we do $1 worth. If we put some real time and effort into it, we're really going to make something special. And maybe that's what people should be shooting for in the first place.
Special equals money. Now, yeah, and there are always going to be seedy, skeezy people that do things. There's always going to be the day one DLC of the world done by companies like Electronic Arts that do day one DLC and like, come on, guys, come on, like you obviously had this done, and so that that's never going to feel right, no matter how much of the game it is, and there's always going to be this instance of like holding back and saving things for DLC and that kind of stuff, which just doesn't really feel right. But
yeah, and I feel like sometimes games get their features, like features that are cut from the standard game, are oftentimes shoved into DLC, and
like maybe this wasn't good enough for the standard game, but we'll DLC it.
Or like we ran out of time, so instead of cutting this feature, because of all the work we put into it, we'll just package this as DLC.
Maybe.
I feel like that happens. And then, the opposite can happen too. I think of an interesting case where there was going to be a expansion to Halo 3, ODST, if you remember that game. Or maybe you don't, but I do. It was a very good game. And it was going to be an expansion to Halo 3 because they just used all the same engine and assets and sort of stuff to tell a completely different story. With different characters, no Master Chief or anything like that. And, we had anyway, basically they built so much good stuff that they ended up launching it as its own separate standalone game that didn't even require you to have bought Halo 3. So there's that other thing where the specialness of it turned into something completely new and different. So I don't know. DLC can be really great. Just don't milk your fans. That is
I mean, I'm not going to
anecdote.
DLC is not bad inherently. DLC isn't bad. It's not delivering value.
Right.
It's bad always. And so that's the problem.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion. Speaking of Grand Theft Auto, little kerfuffle about Grand Theft Auto in Australia.
It's true.
So this is the Target. Do we call it a scandal? Can we call it a gate? Is it Target Gate?
I don't know. Target Gate.
Grand Theft
Australia
Auto,
Gate.
Grand Theft Auto Gate. I don't know. So it's been pulled from select retailers in Australia. I want to say it was Target. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was Target. Definitely was.
Yeah, and so there was some criticism. There was a petition signed, like 50,000 people signed it. The petition was talking about how Grand Theft Auto promotes violence against women, et cetera, et cetera. I'm so torn on this.
Yeah.
I don't know. In many, I've always kind of felt like Grand Theft Auto's stance on a lot of things is very misogynistic. That's as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to justify it. But, so I tend to side with the petition signers, and when so you pull your game from store shelves, right? Target gets it, pulls it in. They're like, we're not doing this. We don't believe in it. It's our stance as a company not to believe in this. I mean, I guess they have moral beliefs like anybody else does, right? And they're responding to business pressures and boycotts, et cetera, and I don't know. And so you always toe this line when you get issues like this between censorship and what's right, what's wrong. Is in this case, I think the petitioners had a strong case for saying that Grand Theft Auto as a series is pretty, it doesn't really portray women the best.
Yeah.
Classically. And, maybe that's true. And so Target responding to that by saying, well, what's our belief on this issue? Well, we don't want to be affiliated with that. Let's pull the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yay, freedom. I don't know. Like, it's your right. You're within your right to do that, I think.
I think that's I don't want to get too whatever, but it's one of those things that's a great thing about sort of democracy is that, there's some stores that are super pro selling this and some that are not. And not only is it our right to sort of consume all these things, but it's also their right to not stand behind a particular product as well. So, I think what's interesting too is that you see a lot more of this kind of thing in Australia than you do in most any other.
Yeah.
At least they get the most press about their restrictions on games.
It's very, very nanny state-ish.
Yeah.
A lot of games have had trouble.
And so
Left 4 Dead comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure. And they definitely say hey, violence is something we're not. We're going to try and restrict that from people. And I tend to think that people should be informed about the content that they're consuming, and then
I think the issue from a government level is very different. I'm sort of against within the realms of is this harming other people? God, it's so complex. I don't even
right.
Everything I'm saying I can think of a million counter arguments.
I know, right? Exactly.
But I think as a government, it's your your right, I guess, your responsibility to inform me. I think of hey, this has these things that people may find morally objectionable.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's your right to take that away from me, or enforce or tell me what's good or not for me.
Right.
I think that's a different issue than Target in general, because I think Target is a business. They have their own beliefs, and they're within their own right to use what their moral standard to pull products.
Right. And that's a very important distinction between the government and a private
Target
enterprise.
Target doesn't serve the people.
Yeah. Target serves Target.
Target serves Target.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fine. And if you want to have a lot of outraging backlash about that because you go to your local Target and can't find Grand Theft Auto, well, that's your right too.
And why are you buying games at Target?
Yeah, dude, come on. It's 2014. Just use the internet.
They have good sales.
Do they?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
Whatever.
Great Black Friday.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Not Grand Theft Auto 5 though. You're in Australia.
Nope.
You won't see that.
Nope.
So I don't know. There are issues there to debate between censorship and hey, this is still wrong. I think at the end of the day it comes down to information, and and even if Target didn't pull it, if they said hey, there's an ESRB rating, you should be aware of that M rating, we're going to go a little further to say that people have reported these X, Y, and Z things that you may find morally objectionable. So don't let your 12-year-old buy it. Be a good parent. Here's the information you need. And that would have been fine too. And just pulling it is fine.
I think that's a big thing is empowering parents to help, them understand what their kid is consuming. And I think a lot of it's an interesting generational gap that I think is going away to some extent. Not all people play games, but a lot more people do, and they understand since we are a lot of times losing a lot of big franchises down to these AAA titles. It's we're on GTA 5. By the time I have kids, we may have GTA 6, or something. And so by the time they're able to play these games, we have GTA 10 for all I know. And so it's I'm pretty sure I'm going to know what GTA is going to have into it, or if something looks like a GTA, I'm going to know.
Well, in just understanding that content is rated, has been reviewed by someone, you know, and it's not Mario anymore, and just pay attention. But that's a whole other issue altogether.
Right on.
Yeah, I don't know. So, hey, look, be mad at Target. Target can be mad at Grand Theft Auto. People can be mad at Grand Theft Auto. Whatever. Live your life, man. If you want to be mad, be mad. It's not a black and white issue.
Yeah, and I think but they are within their rights, which is really interesting. So,
whatever.
It's interesting, and it's interesting to see if that continues to be an issue going forward. So we'll see.
Yeah. And speaking of just parents not understanding, people not understanding.
Yeah.
When I opened this episode of the podcast, I said part of our theme was rehashing.
Yeah.
And that was specifically in mind was the South Park episode that came out last week entitled Rehash. Man. So I talked to Greg about this. Our social media guy, like last week. And his basic response was really that, oh man, like it was a weird episode. It was super weird. And I was like, weird, like you can't even quantify that with words. Like, what does weird mean? And he said, you just got to watch it. So I watched it, later on or whatever after it aired. And yeah, it's weird. It's a very, even in Reigns of South Park, it's a strange episode. And I think it's important to, for us, for what we do in the gaming video realm, to talk about it. So Rehash, if you haven't seen it. In fact, if you haven't seen South Park this season, and you haven't visited in a while, I recommend watching it because they've had this thing going on recently where there's continuity between episodes, and South Park's never really done a lot of work with continuity before, at least outside of this is a continued episode 3 times or whatever.
Yeah.
But like season-long continuity, and so Rehash is like a way for all that continuity to sort of come together. And what's funny is they bring together all these plot threads throughout the entire season,
that's really interesting.
And they point them at gaming video, and that's the really weird part. And,
that is really weird.
And so it's like they're, the kids, the 4 main kids in South Park have discovered gaming video, and PewDiePie makes a cameo. He records a special video, I think, just for this episode.
That's funny.
And they're utterly against it because they're having this debate about why would you want to do that? Like, why would you not want to experience experience a thing instead of watching somebody comment on a thing in a Let's Play or whatever. And there's this really poignant scene, several poignant scenes in the episode. There's one where Ike, which is Kyle's little brother, has a lot of... Oh, P.S. I'm spoilering this episode, so if you don't want to know this, don't listen.
Right.
Ike has a bunch of people over, and Kyle's little brother, he's like 2 or 3 in the show. He's like a real little kid, and they're all sitting in his room, but they're all watching their own laptops and watching gaming videos, right? and not really talking to each other.
Yeah.
And and then there's this other scene where Kyle goes down to his living room, and like it's everything's off. Somebody's watching TV, and like the TV's gathering dust, and he makes a statement that's like, the living room is dying. It's like we're all and it's really
interesting.
Yeah, it's so outside of even the scope of Let's Plays, that's a super important observation to note that like we just don't consume media that way anymore.
Yeah.
Like we don't sit in front of a TV at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday because this X show is coming on. Like there's a whole generation of people that very soon that'll seem foreign, like weird.
Yeah.
We'll do it for football or whatever, and that's it.
Oh no.
And so it's really. And so that's kind of the one big thing, and I think South Park is taking the stance that they're lamenting that. And that makes sense, right? You're a conventional media entertainment property, like you're lamenting the death of the living room.
Yeah.
In a
the
decade,
medium that you love, the medium that you've been serving, all that.
Yeah, in a decade, Nielsen ratings will cease to exist, or at least not have any meaning. I think they barely have meaning anymore, based on the way people watch media. And So there's that, and it's kind of mashed together with the general negativity surrounding Let's Plays and this idea that we're like a non-interactive society, which is a weird way to think about it. That there are people out there playing games, but there are way more people watching those people play games.
Yeah.
And that we're content with that. Like we're content to watch somebody else do this thing rather than doing it ourselves. And I fall in the camp of I'm content to watch that video. I'm much
rather
more
than play it myself.
I'm busy, and I like it's not even a cost thing, because I'm in an age now where I've got enough disposable income that I can buy a game if I want it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I couldn't buy 100, but like I can buy a game when it comes out if I want it. And games are so cheap through Steam sales, etc., that I can buy them real cheap if I wait. I'm a patient person, but. It's not really that. It's like I'm just more content to watch somebody else do the work.
Yeah.
Because I get to experience that and get that person's commentary and get a different take on what's happening, as opposed to just like to experiencing that myself. And for like maybe a single player game, like in a solitary fashion, because I think even in a lot of games with multiplayer, single player, like it's a lonely affair, Like you sitting here playing Burnout, it's lonely, right? Like, I mean, you sit down, you close your mind,
right,
and you focus and you do this thing.
Yeah.
And I think, things like Let's Play videos or live streaming with Twitch makes that less lonely,
right,
and more approachable. I don't know.
It depends on what, to some extent, what mood you're in. Some days it's fun to get lost in Skyrim by yourself.
Yeah.
And sort of like, it's, similar to like reading a book or something.
Yeah,
and then, to some extent, I think like we're taking those experiences of the living room and then turning them into, we're trying to sort of reproduce that living room effect online. And that's, you look at Twitch, that's a big like piece of that, right?
And I guess that's a funny, it's really interesting that, I talk about how lonely gaming is, yet the whole South Park episode made was that through like the living room dying, we've turned ourselves into a society of loneliness.
Yeah.
So no longer now we're not gathering around to watch the TV, we're absorbing ourselves in somebody else absorbing themselves and doing something. I don't know, it's complicated, and I think it's really interesting that there can be such a complicated kind of social shift tied into just videos of people playing video games. It's crazy. And like, when we, GameWisp is a game video company, right? I mean, that's what we do. It's the essence of what we do. And we do it because, it's been over a year ago now that we saw this trend. Like, it was obvious. Like, I think I have an article on Medium that talks about Let's Plays. And I wrote it like a year ago. Yeah. And talked about, like how this shift was happening, and it's like nobody saw it unless you were this close to it, unless you were in. And so when we had this idea for GameWisp to be a game video platform, we were walking around and we were pitching it to investors. We were talking to people about it. The first thing that always came out of people's mouths was like, "Oh, so they watch this video so they can get strategies or whatever." Yeah. And it's like, no. And it was baffling to people that aren't very, very close to this. It was baffling to think that you would watch somebody play a game without the intent of it like improving your experience of playing that game. Right. And I think we still have trouble explaining that to people. Like it's still hard for people to understand that. No, it's just entertaining. Yeah. And
it's the best I guess comparison is always like sports is always pretty good. Musicians, entertainers, right? That's what it comes down to. It's like you don't have to like. It's like you don't watch like LeBron James or somebody like that in order to figure out how to be a better basketball player necessarily. Maybe you did when you're in high school and you had your varsity team or something, but that's not what you do now. You do it to just be entertained or watch how good they are or watch how funny they are or whatever.
Yeah, and to have an attachment to that team or those people. Yeah. And I think gaming video is a lot of the same. Like
taps into that sentiment. Absolutely.
Yeah, we become attached to the PewDiePies and the Total Biscuits of the world much more than we become attached to the Matt Damons and the Ben Afflecks of the world. I think in a lot of ways. There's an essence of humanity there that we can relate to. Yeah. But I don't know. Like I'm really conflicted. I know that I think South Park's in the camp of gaming video is stupid. I believe that from watching. But it's satire, right? Everything is stupid if it's on South Park. Right. I think it's an immediate.
There's everything. There's always something stupid about everything.
Yeah. And South Park's good at finding it. Yeah. And I think there's a sort of this legitimacy conferred to making and watching gaming video that it just continues to get more legitimate. Like I think once you've made it to South Park, you're like the definition of mainstream. I don't see how you can't be. Yeah. I think what shocked me the most about reviews of that episode of South Park was like the writer for IGN that wrote the review for that South Park episode didn't know what gaming video was. Didn't know what Let's Plays were, right? I think he mentioned that in his review, and it's like, what? How do you? But and so it's just a big dose of legitimacy. And hey, here's the thing that exists. It's likely not going anywhere. It doesn't seem to be. Yeah. And it's just going to get bigger. And it's the way a whole generation is going to define with consuming media is. Yeah. I sit down on my tablet or my smartphone or my desktop or my laptop or whatever, and I just watch a thing on the internet. And because I don't want to wait till 7 or I'm busy. I work that night. Right. I had a double shift. I missed it. Like I don't record it on my VCR. I don't even record it on my DVR. Like I just go watch it somewhere.
Yeah, because it's available.
Yeah, and content like it's an on-demand society now, obviously, and with that I think may inherently come loneliness.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know. Playing games are lonely. I'm having a struggle with this idea of loneliness and who's lonely and who's not.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments.
And also, I think the thing too, get too philosophical here is, is loneliness always bad, right? That's the other piece where it's like, sometimes it's okay to be by yourself. And games offer that, but it's not okay necessarily to be by yourself all the time. So that's
so gotta make friends.
Challenging, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I love their commentary on things like that.
Yeah, and it's a two-parter.
Ooh.
So we'll see part 2.
Maybe in
I do think that
podcast we'll have seen it.
In representing gaming video, they kind of point out the worst. Even they use PewDiePie's video. I'm not gonna say PewDiePie's the worst, but the loudness, the in your face, the ridiculousness when gaming video is a broad spectrum of personalities and people that do things different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of frustrating. Cartman starts doing commentary in the style of gaming video and is just utterly obnoxious. And I don't really think that's fair. Like I think that's my biggest complaint with the episode is it's very dismissive of the medium. I mean, you can make a point that like a lot of people are doing this and we think it's weird and don't like it, but it's nothing to be just utterly dismissive of an entire medium.
Right.
And that's kind of a bummer.
And that is a bummer because there are hundreds of thousands of people making this content.
Billions of people watching it.
Yeah.
With a B.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think, that not only are people having to figure out how to deal with it, but so are companies. That kind of brings up something that we, our social media head blogged about this week and, has been kind of in the news, which is the fact that one of the biggest content creators in the Let's Play field, Angry Joe, had a kind of a tiff with Capcom this week.
Oh yeah,
it was really interesting.
Tell me about his tiff.
So, Capcom decided this week that they were going to put out a new Street Fighter, which is usually a cause for what is happening with my car right now.
A cause for jubilation.
Yeah, it's usually a cause for jubilation, but it was actually a cause for jubilation for PS4 fans and not specifically for Xbox One fans because they are going exclusive, at least as far as consoles go, to PS4. It may turn into a, later down the line, Xbox One will get it or whatever.
I literally did air quotes when you say exclusive.
Yeah, that's the way it's happening these days. But, what's interesting is that, so Capcom sent out a trailer to content creators to sort of like get them to talk up the new, I just crashed again. Talk up the new Street Fighter, and so Joe made a video, but then he lampooned their, their like exclusivity and made some negative comments, and then also like took some of the trailer footage to kind of like make his video. And so what Capcom did was take down his video with a copyright request. Or a copyright takedown request or whatever. And
boo.
Yeah, definitely boo. And so Joe obviously followed up with a much more not safe for work response video to that, explaining the situation. But it was a really interesting thing for Capcom to do, which is take down negative criticism because they can with the mechanism of the copyright claim.
I don't think there's really anything interesting here. I mean, well, I think it's horrible, but like it's not some innovative or awesome way that a company is going to try to protect itself. Like companies have always tried to protect their reputation. Always, always, always. The difference is, 15 years ago when this stuff was coming out in Electronic Gaming Monthly, or IGN, more recently than 15 years ago when IGN was writing articles on their site or whatever, like that was journalism, right?
Yeah.
And it was universally recognized as journalism. I'm not saying Angry Joe's not journalism by any means, but back then it was like, oh man, like they're saying something, it's a negative critique. What can we do? Okay, well we can pull our advertising, our sponsorship.
Yeah.
But that might mean more negative criticism down the road, or
right.
we can sue them for libel or slander, whichever one's in print. It doesn't matter. We can sue them, but that's a long, angry road, and we're not likely to win. Like the rules were clear. It was like, this is the press. We're allowed to be, to express our opinion in the press, and our opinion is we don't like this.
Right.
And it was very the roads to protect your reputation back then were very difficult if you were a company.
Yeah.
More difficult than they are today with something like YouTube. The problem with YouTube is like if Joe had released that video on something he uploaded to his personal website, or whatever, where he had control of the video, he had control of the platform, I think the avenues for removal would have been just as difficult or tedious.
Yeah.
And of course he wouldn't have had the exposure, right?
Request
but yeah, like he wouldn't have had the exposure that he had on YouTube. But the whole point is, he didn't control the infrastructure, right? He didn't control the video. He didn't, and most importantly, if it had been hosted himself, there would not have been an easy means to take it away.
Yeah.
Maybe there had been a cease and desist letter. If Joe wanted to fight it, he could have, and there had been a long, hairy mess. And by the time it was resolved, the game would be long since released. Now, the problem is you have with YouTube is you have an overlord of sorts that has an automated means to remove things that you don't necessarily like.
Right.
And the problem with automation is it's great. When you average out the work it does over a sum of millions, it's inherently terrible when you look at the work it does over the sum of one or two.
Right.
And so, or can be inherently terrible. And and so, the problem here is like YouTube distinctly has, millions and millions of videos, and they need some mechanism to remove things that are offensive or wrong or incorrect or illegal without having to look at every single one.
Right.
Right. And so what do they have? They have, copyright claims.
Yeah.
And when you have that, they make it easy for things to be removed, and they get removed.
Yeah.
In a discussion. Like, this isn't, one, I'm fairly certain this is the first time this has happened. It's just the first time it's happened with somebody big enough for people to care about it.
Right.
And two, it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to keep happening because it can. Because, YouTube's incentive to change their copyright system is probably minimal because they're solving a different problem than protecting Joe.
Right.
Right. So they're solving a very different problem there, and a problem that in a lot of ways is in direct conflict with what Joe wants to do.
Right.
So there's probably never going to be a resolution that benefits old Joe.
Yeah, and I think it's always a case of these companies, whoever it was that issued that takedown request does not understand the medium. We'll go back to South Park there, but
of course they do.
How many? Well, they understand me, but like understand the criticism that these people give. Like, what real effect is him criticizing exclusivity going to have on people's purchasing?
It was nowhere near the effect it's going to have now.
Exactly. Now people are either going to not buy it, which is one case, or which I would say is more likely that somebody's going to not buy it. Whoop.
Yeah,
than it was before this.
Yeah, that copyright claim was exerted to protect their reputation.
Yeah.
What they didn't realize,
they heard it.
Yeah, what they didn't realize is that in doing the copyright claim, they've destroyed their reputation because you have taken away one video, you haven't taken away Joe's ability to make more videos.
Right, and so I think the interesting point is that people are loyal to these personalities, and so they may not always agree with them. They may not always say, like, oh, Joe thinks this is awful. Like, I don't really think this is awful because I love PlayStation or whatever. But now that you've personally besmirched their favorite content creator, they're going to bring you down. So it's the effect that you have on your own brand is not one of protection by hurting a content creator.
Yeah, and look, over time, these guys like Joe and others, other big YouTube people, are going to carry more and more clout and more weight, amongst people that have money to spend.
Yeah.
And so you just have to do a better job. I'm scared that the system now, which is relatively pure in the amount of criticism that games receive from these people, will become more and more tainted as advertisers and publishers and developers start pumping more and more money into it. Hopefully that won't happen. But in the meantime, these publishers and developers have to understand that like the power a guy like Joe has is just going to become greater.
Right.
Like they're just going to have more weight, and so you can't silence them. Right. You got to take a different tact. It's that simple. And I think over time that tact will materialize. Hopefully, although I'm very pessimistic, hopefully that tact won't be, hey man, I'm gonna give you a lot of money and you just say this is good. I mean, it happens to a small scale already. It
probably bigger than you think.
Yeah, a small scale that we know about publicly. It probably will continue happening to a bigger scale, and it's just frustrating. You know, like
We love the medium.
Yeah,
because we are a company all about that medium.
Well, and you want to see integrity, right? Like,
yeah.
And we want to. And I want to preserve that. I would love to preserve integrity. What's the way you preserve integrity? You make it where that monetary offer from a big publishing company isn't as attractive as it might be otherwise.
Yeah.
In other words, creators make more money for doing what they like to do.
Yeah.
And not just becoming shills for developers, or not publishers. Let's be honest here. And so. Hopefully we can facilitate that over time.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of
facilitating that.
We've been going on a long time, and we should do what's been going on this week at GameWisp. So if you want more information about what's up with Joe versus Capcom, we wrote a blog post about it on Wednesday. Is that when it came out?
Yes.
Yeah. So we wrote a blog post, and that is up, written, as always, by the marvelous and wonderful Greg Rosen, who you heard last week on the podcast and maybe at a morning coffee or two. Good guy, smart guy. Got some good insights on this. You guys should all go read it if you want to learn more about this. That's just on our blog, blog.gamewisp.com.
That's right, blog.gamewisp.com.
Check it out. In other news, if you're watching Morning Coffee, first of all, if you know what Morning Coffee is, that's our morning meeting where we talk about what we're doing, what we've been doing, and what we hope to do. We do it on Twitch from usually 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and it's just Michael and I usually playing a game and talking about what we're going to do that day. So you can, if you want to check that out, it's twitch.tv/GameWisp, and you can come ask us questions, talk to us, see what's going on, that kind of thing. So you can check Morning Coffee out there, and that's where we get a little bit deeper on dev stuff and things we're doing. So if you want a little more knowledge and more fun, or just to talk to us in not really real time, but closer than YouTube comments, come
check it out.
Hang out with us.
Enjoy it, and hopefully we won't. I don't know. We're getting to the end of Bioshock. That's what we've been playing. Yeah. Bioshock Infinite.
Pretty deep in Bioshock Infinite right now.
That's right. Hopefully I won't spoil that game for you.
Yeah. So if you're not going to catch Morning Coffee, if you just don't want to, or maybe you actually have to do work at 9 in the morning, what we've been up to lately, still a lot of development, but we have opened testing both internally into a very, very small number of creators.
That's right.
Who are just breaking everything, which is exactly what we want to happen.
Right.
And so we're going through and bug fixing with that smaller number of people we have now, making the platform better and better. And hopefully very soon we will be opening it to more people. And so if you're interested in trying out our video features, for those that aren't in the know, this is the ability to curate series and videos on GameWisp to present on your GameWisp channel, but also to upload to GameWisp premium video that you can then release early access or premium to your fans, and then also push that content to YouTube after a certain period of time, such that you don't have to interact with two places at once. You're just managing GameWisp, and most of your stuff's going over and being done automatically on YouTube. We're also building a lot of other features that are very interactive focused. So if you want to check that out, if you want to see what the beta's like, you can do info@gamewisp.com. Send an email there and give us a link to your channel on YouTube. We don't really care how big or small your channel is. What we're looking for at this point is people that upload or update their channels regularly, because we want to see how we fit into a common daily or at least weekly workflow of a YouTube creator. So if you're one of those people and you're interested in what we're doing, drop us a line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, from a future development perspective, we are working hard, and we're excited to get this out to people soon. We've got some great experiences for both the creator and viewer lined up, and
hope so.
It's looking good. So join us for Morning Coffee. You can hear some more specifics about that. And, join us. If you sign up for the site, we send out a weekly update email with the content that we're creating, and then also updates about development and all that kind of stuff. So we'd love to have you check that out so that you can stay abreast of what we're up to. And we'll once you get on our site, we'll have email updates out whenever the site's ready to go for consuming content and doing some cool stuff that we got lined up. So come check us out, sign up. And we'd love for you to subscribe, like, and comment on these podcasts as we put them out. We're always hoping to get better and do more cool stuff on the podcast. And it's got to be, it's only going to improve when we find out more about what's going on. So please comment, like, and subscribe our video. And, I think that pretty much wraps us up for the week.
Does it?
I think so.
Okay.
Do I need to do some sort of jump to finish this up?
Yeah, we really got to end this with a pretty sweet jump.
Okay. We have no boost right now, so let's find a car to sideswipe.
Yeah. We doing, so this comes out on Friday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there won't be a morning coffee on Saturday because that's the weekend.
That's right.
So we run that Monday through Friday.
That's a good point.
Hope you guys join us. Oh, here's a jump. Yes.
Nope.
I'm utterly disappointed in how you handled that.
Me too.
All right, let's just end on disappointment.
Like we always do.
Like we always do.
Yeah.
Ending on disappointment.
Super jump.
Slowest. That was the lamest super jump ever.
But guess what? That was better than the last one. So with that, we're signing off.
Yeah. Have a good weekend, guys.